Afternoon, everyone. It's fall time, but it doesn't feel like it yet. They tell me it's on the way. Thank you for joining us here in the Craig H. Nielsen Auditorium for History's Lunch. I'm Chris Goodwin with the Mississippi Department of Archives and History. If you have not already, please silence your cell phones. Join us tomorrow evening for live music on the Welty Lawn featuring the Mississippi College Jazz Band. They'll play numbers that were favorites of Eudora Welty and that are featured in the new For the Record exhibit. We'll have lawn games and free lemonade and popcorn for the children and free beer and wine for the adults. Claim a spot on the lawn with a blanket or chair beginning at 5 p.m. and the music will run from 5:30 to 7. Hope that we see you for that. And I hope that you will join us here next week for History's Lunch when Richard Howarth and Lynn Roberts will present Square Books and Oxford's Literary Heritage. Today, we are delighted to have the Jackson premiere of Judy Alsobrooks Meredith's new documentary, Who Is James Meredith? The film has been shown at festivals in California, Georgia, and Texas, where it won the Director's Choice Award at the Fort Worth Indie Film Showcase. Judy Alsobrooks Meredith is a native of Gary, Indiana. She holds a BS from Lincoln University, an MA from Jackson State University, and a PhD in Public Policy and Administration from Mississippi State University. Following stints as a radio news announcer and television news reporter, anchor, and producer in Jackson and Cincinnati, Meredith became a teacher and worked as an assistant professor at Jackson State University. A former Fulbright scholar, Judy Meredith served on the Fulbright Association's National Board of Directors and Diversity Task Force. We'll have a few remarks by Mrs. Meredith, then we'll view the half-hour documentary, and then following that, we'll have a question and answer session where we'll be joined by James Meredith, a man who certainly needs no introduction, but I do want to mention his 1962 integration of the University of Mississippi that catapulted him to national prominence. And in 1966, he undertook a walk from Memphis, Tennessee to Jackson, Mississippi to encourage African-American voter registration. For this, he was shot and wounded by a hidden gunman on the second day. He is the author of several books and the subject of countless others, and now he is also the subject of this documentary film. Help me welcome Dr. Judy Alsobrooks Meredith.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. This means so much to me, I'm sure James as well, to have it actually screened here in Jackson. As Chris said, we've been to other states with it, but this means an awful lot. The documentary is 30 minutes long, and this is different because I chose to not have James in a traditional talking head type situation. So he's in casual conversations on this with his brother, his sister, the Kennedy kids, grandchildren, Robert Kennedy's grandchildren, and so you get to see James laugh for some, at some point in the film. You get to see him be himself. And then you get to see him being very serious toward the end. Now, there are a few people, like he said, housekeeping. First of all, James has books here. We have to do our commercial too, James has books here, and so after the film, if you'd like to come up and purchase, we'll be sitting right there taking money, checks, and credit cards. Let me introduce a couple of people here, and I'm sorry if I miss anybody. James's brother is here. You'll see him first in the film. Stand up, Arthur. And his wife, Mary. That's James's baby brother. Ed Meek, where are you? There you are, right center front, and his beautiful wife. Ed Meek, during that riot, in fact, he has a book called Riot, right? And he has all these pictures of everything that was going on that night. And it was a terrible night at Ole Miss. And somebody else is here who was actually on campus that night as a student. But Ed, please stand up. I'm using his pictures throughout, and his wife. Thank you. Now, there's somebody else Where's Don? Don Cole, Dr. Don Cole. He's also in the film. He was the assistant provost at Ole Miss, just retired last year. He's retired, which shows you how far Mississippi has come to have a black assistant provost, as well as many, many students now from across the world who are people of color. So with that, am I forgetting somebody? Please let me know. I know you hate to raise your hand. There were a few other people. Oh, the lady, I can't think of her name. Come on, stand up. The student that was at Ole Miss. Where are you? Don't be shy. Tell me your name again. Beverly. That's Beverly. She actually was an eyewitness to the riots that night at Ole Miss. I hope you enjoyed 30 minutes long. Don't forget about the books afterwards. Thank you.
Hey, James Meredith. Hey, nigger. James Meredith. I want your autograph, nigger. James Meredith.
People ask me, who is James Meredith? I tell them to make sure they really want to know. You must have your thinking cap on to scratch the surface of understanding who he really is. Don't try to box him into a movement. He never did fit confined. James is brilliant, yet approachable, is learned, yet thrives to know more. He is a shrewd strategist who manipulated the U.S. government to partner in the largest single coup against the stronghold of white supremacy. I believe James's fearlessness is due to his unwavering faith, his confidence in knowing that he is divinely protected.
For the trappy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I'm gonna shut up, man. The whole of this thing, now, the whole of this thing was to get the state of Mississippi and the federal government against each other. End result. He wasn't going up there without the federal government supporting him.
And if they got enough evidence.
No. That was the whole.
I had to trick them to nobody. You ever heard of John Kennedy?
Yeah.
And Bobby Kennedy? Nobody was more shocked than Bobby Kennedy and John Kennedy when they had to bring all them troops down to Mississippi.
All them troops down there.
They didn't know. I mean, you talking about leading them down in a trap. I trapped the federal government far worse than Mississippi. And when they realized what had happened, it was too late.
Turn around. Too late to turn around. They had to go forward.
And a lot of things happened in that. A lot of things. James had to tell him he wasn't going unless they supported him. And then they got him down there, and they had black troops coming out of Vietnam that was leading the army. And they would take them black troops and set them on the side picking up garbage instead of them letting them do their job. And the army couldn't do his job. James wrote, called them Kennedys and told them if they didn't put them back in the line doing their job, he was going to quit. Guess what?
Well, they started doing what they were supposed to.
That's right.
Having them do what they were supposed to do.
That's right.
And gave him the guns back.
And gave them guns loaded
I heard that.
against Mississippi white folk.
Oxford, Mississippi, Sunday, September 30th, 1962. The court had decided. The time had come. President John Kennedy told Governor Ross Barnett, who had earlier blocked James Meredith's entrance, that Meredith must now be enrolled at the University of Mississippi.
I've taken an oath to abide by the laws of this state and our state constitution, the Constitution of the United States. And General, how can I violate my oath of office? How can I do that and live with the people of Mississippi? You know, they're expecting me to keep my word. That's what I'm up against, and I don't understand
Governor,
why the court wouldn't understand that.
Governor, this is the President speaking.
Yes, sir.
I know that you're feeling about the law of Mississippi and the fact that you don't want to carry out that court order. What we really want to have from you, though, is some understanding about whether the state police will maintain law and order. We understand your feeling about the court order and your disagreement with it. But what we're concerned about is how much violence is going to be and what kind of action we'll have to take to prevent it. And I'd like to get assurances from you about that the state police down there will take positive action to maintain law and order. Then we'll know what we have to do.
They'll take positive action, Mr. President, to maintain law and order as best we can.
Anticipating fierce defiance by the people there, the president sent several hundred federal marshals to Oxford, and the Justice Department orchestrated Meredith's secret entrance onto campus. But even as President Kennedy broadcast an appeal for calm, insurrection against the federal government had begun.
We couldn't consider moving Meredith if we haven't been able to restore order outside. That's the problem, Governor.
Well, I'll tell you what I'll do, Mr. President.
Yeah.
I'll go up there myself.
Well, now, how long will it take you to get there?
And I'll get a microphone and tell them that you have agreed to be removed.
No, wait a minute. Wait a minute, Governor. Now, how long is it going to take you to get up there?
About an hour.
Now, I tell you what, if you want to go up there, then you call me from up there, and then we'll decide what we're going to do before you make any speeches about it.
Well, all right.
There's no sense in that.
Whatever if you'd offer.
See, we got an hour to go, and that's not, we may not have an hour, but it will take you an hour to get up there.
President, please, why don't you, can't you give an order to try to remove Meredith?
How can I remove him, Governor, when there's a riot in the street, and he may step out of that building and something happen to him? I can't remove him under those conditions. Let's get order up there, then we can do something about Meredith.
We can surround it with plenty of officials.
Well, we've got to get somebody up there now to get order and stop the firing and the shooting. Then you and I will talk on the phone about Meredith.
Marshals were losing their fight to secure the campus. It left Kennedy with no choice. He sent in the military. But by the time they arrived, 2 people were dead, an Oxford resident and a French journalist. And dozens of marshals were injured. By early morning, the military had restored order, occupying Ole Miss and the town of Oxford. In the aftermath of car fires, tear gas, fumes, and rioters arrested, Meredith was escorted to the registrar's private office, where the enrollment of the university's first black student was completed.
James H. Meredith is formally enrolled at the University of Mississippi, ending one chapter in the federal government's efforts to desegregate the university. The town of Oxford is an armed camp, following riots that accompany the registration of the first Negro in the university's 118-year history. Much of this film record was destroyed when our cameraman, Gordon Yoder, was attacked, but he did salvage pictures of Governor Ross Barnett at the scene. The governor fought the court order long and bitterly before modifying his stand. saying Mississippi was overpowered by the federal government. President Kennedy appealed to the students and to the people of the state to comply peacefully with the law and bring the crisis to an end. Even as he talked, riots were breaking out in Oxford.
If this country should ever reach the point where any man or group of men, by force or threat of force, could long deny the commands of our court and our Constitution, then no law would stand free from doubt. No judge would be sure of his writ, and no citizen would be safe from his neighbors.
Nearly 6,000 troops patrol Oxford to maintain order, and arrests mount to more than 200 as smaller disturbances erupt the next day. Former Major General Edwin Walker, who came here from his home in Texas, is put under arrest and held in high bail on charges of inciting insurrection. He was flown to a federal prison hospital as relative calm settled on the town in the greatest crisis the South has faced since the Civil War.
America had a segregated society. Mississippi was the epitome of that segregation. And the segregation was to sustain white supremacy by forcing blacks in every way to not enjoy the rights and privileges of citizenship in the United States of America.
So when this movement becomes bigger, were you afraid of this violence that wake up all of a sudden?
Now what people have to understand, particularly in France and Germany, I had already won my war before I ever stepped on the campus of Ole Miss. My goal when I attacked Mississippi was to force the federal government into a position where they had to use the military might of the United States to support my rights as a citizen. Did you see here? This was Camp Meredith. That's just a small segment. The only time in history you ever had a camp of soldiers against Mississippi American citizens.
It's you here when you come back in your family?
That's my mother here. I don't know who this lady is, but I mean, that's my mother. And my mother and my father were the principal engineers of what I did. My mother started when I was 7 years old, preparing me for my role.
There'll be one of those older students that was there when James was here, and you get where you can spot them because they're standing off over there and they kind of in turmoil. Should I speak to him? Should I not speak to him? They got to get it off their chest.
That's
and
right.
Sooner or later, they always walk up to James, and they always go something like this. They'll say, "James, I'm ashamed to say this," and some of them will say, "I lived right down the hall from you at Vassar Hall. I'm ashamed to say this. I would have never shaken your hand back then. I would have never spoken to you." And then they'll stick their hand out and they say, "But I just want you to know it's an honor to shake your hand." It happens every time I remember.
And more powerfully, he extends his hand.
That's right. That's exactly. And you needed to hear that, and they needed to say it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's a great story.
Yeah, we appreciate that for sure. That's the heroic part in him.
Now, since won't nobody else say nothing, I'll say this about the Kennedys.
Okay.
I knew you were going to do
I was always sure, and I'm more sure now, that just about every major decision made regarding the black-white thing during the 60s, during the Kennedy administration, was made by the granddaddy of these two.
That's right.
And no question in my mind that in terms of me and encouraging me, their granddaddy, not only the only person high up that I ever talked to in the Kennedy and the other government, but he invited me to his house in New York when he was senator. And treat me like I thought I should have been treated. And it wouldn't be important now, but it was extremely important then. And 1 week after I applied for Ole Miss and was trying to keep myself from getting lynched, and that's what it was about, because old Mississippi was known for eliminating anybody who threatened the status quo. I wrote the Kennedy administration. And John Kennedy died in 1963, and they built him a library in Boston, and at the entrance to that library, a copy of that letter that I wrote.
Wow.
You understand that? And when your granddaddy died, they put his desk in the rotunda of the Justice Department. That same letter was in the upper left-hand corner, and the last time I was there, it was still there. And I told them, plain and simple, my biggest concern was staying alive until the decision was made.
The famous picture of James walking out the door over here. If you look at that picture, James is the coolest head and the calmest person in the whole picture. He even has a swagger in his shoulder. And so I've asked James, we've talked about it many times, I said, what were you thinking about? You're the calmest guy there. You see hatred in a lot of these people's faces. He's got the president's man, Mr. McShane, and Deputy Attorney General Dorr, Bobby Kennedy's man, on each side of him, and all these U.S. Marshals, 400 U.S. Marshals standing around. What were you thinking? And he said, when I walked out the front door, I couldn't help thinking about my old Air Force commander, because I had told him back in the early 50s when he asked me what my goals were, and he was from Mississippi, I said, I want to be the first Negro to go to the University of Mississippi, Ole Miss, and he said, I think that's a good cause, but you need to be prepared to die because you could easily get killed. And he said, I wasn't thinking about getting killed because I didn't think God was going to let me get killed. He didn't, and thank God. But he said I just couldn't help thinking fondly about that because he actually had encouraged me. He thought it was a good thing to do. He said, and then the next thing, he said, you're right, I saw all that hatred in a lot of those people's eyes, but I tried to block it out because and hoped that one day maybe they would understand why I was doing this and maybe I would even become their friend. Well, that happens over and over in the Grove now when he walks across the Grove. And he said, and I intentionally did my best to look calm. I read about what the Pope going back through the gates of Rome. And so I did that. I didn't want people to think that history would record that I looked fearful or was uncertain about what I was doing. And then the last thing, he said, I noticed that the president's men and attorney general's men wore coats and ties, but I didn't own a coat and tie. But my big brother Arthur did. Little brother Arthur did, who's taller than he is. And he said, so in that picture, when he's standing there about to walk across the street and you got the National Press Corps right there, he was telling me what he was thinking. He said, I was thinking, I sure do hope they shoot me from waist up because my pants are 3 inches too long. I showed him the picture. Wow. Ed Meek, I told Meek when he did that book riding on all those pictures, I said, do you realize what you've done? You have pictures of James Meredith with his pants too long. They're about 5 inches too long.
Oh, this behind the scenes stuff you never know.
Oh, that's
so
amazing.
interesting. That's really
Well, I think I just want to say that I'm so honored to be here, and I just want to thank all of you guys so much, because Kik and I grew up not only reading about you in history classes and learning about you in the civil rights movement and what an important role you played, but also from my dad, who just absolutely reveres you, and just hearing stories about what an important role you played and how much respect my grandpa and my great uncle had for you from him directly. It's just it's absolutely incredible for us to be here in person now. But he said to us yesterday something that I thought was really interesting, which is he said that this was really the last battle of the civil rights movement. And it's pretty amazing for me to then, look through those photos with Hiram and see that it's just you, and you've got 30,000, National Guards backing you up, but it's just you who decided to go on that, who decided to admit yourself here and to fight that battle, alone. And it takes a tremendous amount of bravery, and fortitude to be able to do that and say that I'm going to, wage that battle alone. And so we have so much respect for you, and we're so
And
thank you.
yeah, to be actually here with you is sort of this amazing experience. I never thought I'd be so lucky. And I just want to thank you for what you've done in your life, and also on behalf of my entire family, because they've been giving us a lot of phone calls. A lot of messages coming your way, and they're all of love and gratitude and inspiration. So anyway, it's been an honor to shake your hand.
Thank you. That's what God told me to say. Just said thank you.
I can't put it into words. And you hoping and praying that everything is going to be all right.
Yeah.
They never do nothing to him, though, did he? I mean, he didn't stay in jail.
For 18 months.
Okay. Well, that's better than most of them.
He was the first in the history of Mississippi to go to jail for shooting a black.
A lot of it did make our television and our newspaper because they would always refer to him as a graduate of Gibbs High School. And that's how that information got down there.
On June 5th, 1966, James Meredith started on his 220-mile march against fear from Memphis, Tennessee to Jackson, Mississippi. His goal? To encourage blacks to register and vote. His message was fairly simple. Any person should be able to walk any road without fear of being harmed by white supremacists. The blacks were notoriously intimidated and threatened when it came to exercising their right to vote. It was a sultry Sunday morning when Meredith started out on the second day with a Bible in his hand. Another man, Aubrey James Norval, An unemployed hardware store worker from Memphis was also making his way down that same rural road, Highway 51. He carried a shotgun and sat hidden in tall brush, waiting for the chance to pull the trigger. When Meredith was nearing Hernando, Mississippi, Norval's intent became clear. In a grasp, resolved voice, he shouted, "James Meredith! I just want James Meredith!" Norval leveled his stare, steadied his hand, and fired. The 3 shotgun blasts hit Meredith in his back, legs, and head. He lay on the ground, bleeding, until help arrived. A hearse from a nearby funeral home rushed Meredith to a Memphis hospital. With that, Norval became the first white man to be arrested for shooting a black in Mississippi. As Meredith recuperated in the hospital, word of the assassination attempt flew around the country with lightning speed. Several black leaders hurried to Mississippi with intent to complete Meredith's march against fear. Reverend King, Stokely Carmichael, Floyd McKissick, and Roy Wilkins from the NAACP, CORE, SCLC, and SNCC put aside their diverse and opposing philosophies on the civil rights movement to join Meredith's mission. As those leaders walked through Mississippi, multitudes of people joined them throughout small rural towns, many of them registering to vote for the first time. When they reached Jackson, Meredith, having been released from the hospital, joined the more than 10,000 marchers. It was another chapter in Mississippi's history and in America's new reality. The South was slowly grinding ahead.
This place should be overflowing with children. And I'm going to tell you why it ain't. Because everything she said was about what white folks did and what white folks ought to do and what white folks didn't do. The future of the black race, the future of Mississippi, the future of the world depends upon what we do now. And it ain't just this church. I went to 56 black churches in a row. And they were all doing the same thing. Establishing a class thing. And everybody who need to be in this church according to the Bible I've been reading, would be unwelcome here. Because you wouldn't want to grab and hug and kiss them. And that's the whole, those are most of all the people Jesus Christ ever talked about. Was that people you didn't want to be around. Those are the people that you owe this training to. This opportunity to learn.
Lord, unite us. Lord, unite us. Make us one. Whoa. Words we speak in anger against our fellow man has torn apart the fabric of our land. See, hatred is a poison that spreads through you and me, but forgiveness brings the freedom that we need. Yeah. So I raise my hand to take a stand. Lord, unite our hearts, give a brand new start. Make us one, Lord. Make us one, Lord. By your Spirit. Make us one united people. Bonded by your blood. For your plan. world today. The time is now to lift our voice and say, make us one by your spirit. Ooh, make us one. Hey, for your pleasure and your glory. Yeah. So the world will see. Yeah. Ooh, yeah, yeah. Lord, unite us. Please make us one. Please make America one. Oh, I want to sing it one more time. Lord, unite us. Make us one.
Thank you so much.
Y'all, I apologize. When we ran through that earlier, the sound was not off from that. That's our mistake. The film is not like that. The Merediths have graciously agreed to take questions from the audience. If you will raise your hand, I'll bring the microphone so that you can ask that.
Can I say something?
Yes, certainly.
Real quick? Hiram Eastland is here. He was the one that was doing all the talking at Ole Miss when the Kennedy kids were there. So he's in the back. And Reverend Patricia Williams, the church at the end was her church at the time. So she's here. And I'm sorry if I'm excluding anybody, but I can't see all that good. I'm old now. And, you know, charge it to my head, not my heart. Okay.
I can make up a question. Yesterday was the 57th anniversary of your being on campus at Ole Miss. Do you do anything special on the anniversary date in remembrance or memorial?
Frankly, I didn't even know it was. Two people at Kroger reminded me of it October 1st, and I didn't know what they were talking about. I've had a lot of big days. Today is the biggest ever. That's the first time I've seen my wife's work. And I'm quite willing to become the sideshow.
Yes, Mr. Meek.
I was there with James. Dr. Meek, hold on. Let me bring you the microphone so everyone watching can.
Thank you.
I was there with James in 1962, and as a former vice chancellor for public relations and marketing, I have enjoyed watching him all the years with an Ole Miss cap. I took his picture a little while ago and didn't realize till I looked at the picture, it doesn't say Ole Miss, it says New Miss. Tell us about it, James. What is that? He told me what it means.
Did he ask me a question?
What does New Miss mean?
A pastor, Pastor West. He deserves credit. He also has a seminary that has graduated many black ministers with master's degrees in theology. and we work out together at the University Fitness Center. I'm gonna hush my mouth. But Pastor West one day come in and he said, I got something to give you. So he went out to his car and bought this cap. And he said, the day that you registered at Ole Miss, before you went to your first class, there was no longer an old Mississippi. You had created a new Mississippi. And for over 50 years, I've been watching you parade around with this Ole Miss cap. I don't ever in life want to see you with another Ole Miss cap. And I'm going to tell you how selfish I am. I was mad at him for several weeks because he thought of that and I hadn't thought of it.
James can be quite funny. A lot of people don't know that.
Thank you. Let me just say personally, thank you very much because of your sacrifice and struggle, I was able to go to Ole Miss. But my question is, you took bullets to get black people to vote as part of the struggle to get black people to vote. I'm wondering, black people are still not voting as many as they should. What do you tell them now to get them to vote?
Oh, yeah, I don't hear good as I used to, but now, quite frankly, I don't know anything about you, but you look like you're getting old like me. I have come to the conclusion, actually, I knew it because when I went to Ole Miss, I thought I was on a mission from God. And when I conducted the March Against Fear, I was on a mission from God. My mission from God now is to get the people of Mississippi to turn the whole world around by raising the moral character of all of our people. Until we do that, ain't no point in talking about much else. Because until the moral character is right, and when we started black education, nobody in Mississippi could come there with a teacher's certificate and stay in that community if their moral character wasn't right. And now we don't even talk about religion. We got to change our whole mental process. I'm going to shut my mouth and try to go over and sell some more books.
My name is Kenneth White. In 1962, I came down with the 101st Airborne Division from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and saw you go into Ole Miss. We were bivouacked right across the street. I didn't know I'd ever see you again, and I again was afraid for my life. I'm from Mississippi. I'm from Claiborne County. But I was living in Michigan at the time. And show you how good God is. God has brought us full circle. I retired from the federal government and I moved back to Mississippi. I live in Pearl now. But it's just an honor and a pleasure to see what God did for you and how God delivered you. But I felt real bad coming back to Mississippi, being from Mississippi, with all the violence that was going on. I was coming back to fight against my own people. So I felt real bad, but God worked it out. But again, I have proof. I was with the 1st Battalion, 327th Infantry. We were sent down by President Kennedy in 1962. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you, 82nd Airborne. Whichever one of them it is. In James Meredith's opinion, the most important thing I ever did was made the United States government put the black troops back in their position on Ole Miss campus after they moved them and took the guns away. I made them give them back, and ain't nobody ever act like they recognize that. But you understand, I spent 9 years in the military before I came back to Mississippi. And to dishonor the black troops the way that the federal government did, not Mississippi, because it was the federal government in charge. And what that told me was all of the policies in America were not right. It wasn't just Mississippi, and it's still true to this day. I'm gonna hush my mouth and shut up.
I just wanted to thank you for your tremendous courage that it took to do what you did. And, I don't guess any way you could have done it without the Lord and the Holy Spirit's help, but thank you, because you did so much for changes for education in Mississippi, for voting, thank you.
I want to answer that because all my life I thought I was on a mission from God, but I tried to cover it up. I didn't want nobody to know it because it wasn't the thing that educated people thought they should be talking about, God. But quite frankly, I ain't never had a fear or worry. I absolutely thought and believed that if I did God's work, He would take care of me. I ain't never, and every time I've ever believed it happened. I got shot. It was an interesting picture for me to watch me being shot. But even then, when it actually happened, it didn't faze me none. I mean, because I thought I was doing God's work, and He done promised He's going to take care of me. And I think that's the case all around, and I believe, thank you, Miss Pat. That's the name of the lady that church that we was in, where I said stuff I thought blacks was going to lynch me for. But now I'm glad to see it, and I'm glad for this film. And I will say this because I believe it. Everybody's time go past. And I think that I heard my wife tell somebody, I had never heard her say that before, that she did all of this because she first was a elementary, some kind of music school teacher. And she used that skill. Then she became a professional journalist. And she used that skill. And now I don't know what that third one is, but she says she used another skill. Public policy. Yeah, okay, you talk.
So, I finally got the mic back. So the third is, I got a PhD from Mississippi State. Sorry, Ole Miss folks. In public policy and administration, and this case here, especially Ole Miss case, proves to be one of the major, just simply a major policy shift regarding the federal government and a state in the United States, in the country, to have. See, it wasn't just Ole Miss that had been integrated at that time. None of the major or the traditionally white schools were integrated. Up north either, because I'm from Indiana, and what they would have in the northern states is, what do they call that, a quota? So 2 or 3 or 4 black folks could get in, even way back then, and they were integrated. But it was not an easy thing. And people should have a choice. Lord knows I love my HBCUs. I went to 2 of them. I went to Lincoln University in Missouri, and I went to Jackson State University for my master's. Where are my Jackson State folks? Now, here we go. I was going to mention us. So I love that. But we had to move forward with, with some choices. We couldn't stay under, James doesn't like me to use the word Jim Crow, because he said he don't know what that means anyway. But we had to move forward. So I can appreciate what James did on a personal level, because I was able to go to Mississippi State University, and I was able to put this thing together using all 3 of my skills. That's all I wanted to say.
I just want to say one thing. Martin Luther King, from his letter in Birmingham jail, says in that letter, he says, one of these days, the South is going to know who her real heroes are. And they're going to be heroes like James Meredith. And I think it's so fitting that Judy, James's wife, just showed us who the South and Mississippi's real hero is. And I just want to congratulate you on the wonderful documentary.
Thank you, Howard.
I'm Charles Thomas, and I live between Midnight and Daybreak, Mississippi. I want to thank you, Dr. Meredith, for the important part you played in the history of our school. Our daughter went to undergraduate at Ole Miss and the graduate of law school, and she studied in Oxford as well in England. And it was because of you and what you contributed to the United States. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you both for y'all's sacrifices and contributions. I love the new Miss versus old. One question and one request. What do you think of the term old Miss and problems? And can you do anything to get them to upgrade our state flag anytime soon?
I can only answer part of that, because my God forbid me to say anything controversial or negative. And I can't answer that last part without doing one of those 2 or both. I'm forgetful. What was the first part of his question?
The first part, I'm forgetful too.
Old Miss.
What
do you think about
Oh, that's a great question. Nothing is better than that, because Ole Miss is real. Ole Miss not only ran Mississippi, she ran the South. And one of the biggest things now is that it's all them old bad white folks. The truth of the matter is, most everything good that's happened was because of what some of them good white folks did. Like Dr. Sanson, I can only mention because they're dead, up at Ole Miss. He is the first person to invite me back to Ole Miss. 10 years after I went there, it was 20 years before the rest of Ole Miss even talked to me, more or less invited me back. I mean, they not only did he invite me back, he told everybody if he knew what a mystic was, James Meredith is a mystic. And what he was telling folks, God works in mysterious ways, and James Meredith is one of those mysteries. Don't you understand what that did for me at Ole Miss? I mean, and he knew what he was doing. He ain't never admitted to me that he knew, but I know he knew. I'm going to shut my mouth.
I just want to say that James told me a long time ago He said, I felt if I could just crack Ole Miss, the state would fall, the nation would too. And it's true, it opened the door. Now, I'm an Ole Miss guy. I heard Jackson State, I heard Mississippi State. Now, Judy slipped off to Mississippi State. But I want you to know that Arthur's children, James's children, and their daughter or granddaughter Jasmine is coming to Ole Miss this fall. Howdy toddy.
I just want to say congratulations to a great hero. I know that there are many things that you've been called, and some of them are great things and deeply describe you. But both of you have done a wonderful job. You've been out there, and she has been there to capture what you've done. And we enjoyed today's show.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
This was absolutely wonderful, but another interesting note, Miss Judy was the pioneer of the television broadcast at Jackson State University, so we should give her a hand as well. Thee I love.
Hey, Judy, I wanted to ask you, when you was doing this documentary, did you learn something new about Uncle J-Boy?
That's a really, really good question. Did I learn something new about you? You know what, Meredith? I learned something new just about every day from him. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's been a quite an adventure. I won't call it a journey. It's been an adventure. So, you know, I mean, I don't think I learned anything new during that. Because James can be quite funny, so that may be fun. That may be new to you all, but it's not new to me. That's why I wanted to capture him in casual conversation rather than just a talking head. I've seen a number of documentaries, and they're really good. Ole Miss did an excellent one. But it's always the same soundbite that they use for him. 30 for 30, ESPN's 30 for 30 did an excellent one on James and that great football team in 1962. But it's always the same soundbite from James, and he's more than just that. And this documentary was not about other people and how they suffered through the fumes and the tear gas, and you know, I understand, you know, that hurt. But this was James's story to tell. It wasn't about, you know, journalists are taught to have all sides, both sides. My side, both sides, was about him, okay? So that's why you didn't see a lot of other interviews in there. I wanted to get him talking about how he feels and what he was thinking about.
I got to say this. James Meredith thought he was a bad dude. And we didn't really say it that way. But I can't say it the way we said it.
I have one question. When will this be available to the general public?
That's a good question. That is really a good question. I hope soon. The reason I don't know specifically is because I have it submitted to several film festivals around the country, and some of them prefer it not being sold prior to it showing at those film festivals. That's why I'm a little slow. You know, it'd be great one day to be on Netflix, wouldn't it? But I will let you know, I have a Facebook page. I know I got some Facebook friends in here, a bunch of them. But anyway, that's one way I'll you know, let it out, be able to tell. Is Donna Ladd here? Huh? Where is Donna? Oh, Donna. Donna is the creator, founder, editor-in-chief of Jackson Free Press.
She also went to Columbia.
And she also went to Columbia, he says. Diana, raise your hand. And she's also a very good friend of the Merediths. Anyway, I'll let you know through Donna. Donna, you'll do an article. She'll let everybody know, okay? Oh, and there's a podcast. Dog, we should have had her on the mic. Where's the mic? Because she knows more about it than I do. Yeah, go ahead and tell them.
All you got to do is go to letstalkjackson.com a little later this afternoon, and my podcast with Judy's there, and we talk a lot about Mr. Meredith on there, and there's some pretty great stories. So y'all listen in.
Isn't that wonderful?
Thanks, Chris.
We have come to the top of another hour. I know there are more questions. The Merediths will be glad to answer those for you. They will be over at the table here. They have copies of their books there. And if you are a member of the Mississippi Historical Society, you should have just received the latest issue of the Journal of Mississippi History, which has a featured article on the Meredith March. If you are not a member, you can purchase this in the museum store. Thank you all for coming. I hope that we see you here next week. Help me thank Judy and James Meredith for this program today.